Hello, Yang Gang Book Club. My name is Kateri, and I'm very excited today because I'm going to be taking over this page. I am one of the co-creators of Yang Gang Book Club along with Megan and Natalie, who you've already met. So today is my official debut, and I'm going to be sharing with you a little over 5 books that are some of my personal favorites, but also books that I could see recommending to the book club in the future. And so I'm just really excited, and I hope that you will tune in and interact with my choices, and also follow some of the authors, and bring your Goodreads so that you can keep track of them as well. See you soon. Alrighty, so my first pick is Bad Indians by Deborah Miranda. So this is personal to me because I am Pueblo Indian. So Deborah is a California Indian. And I read this for school, and it kind of changed my life. This is actually what's called a tribal memoir, which is sort of a new emerging genre within memoir, because oftentimes Native people, in order to tell their stories, there's a challenge there in that, their ancestral history is not readily available to them. So this is actually part history, where she does quite a bit of historical research, and you learn a lot about the Native Americans' involvement in the building of the California missions, which I kind of knew about, but honestly learned so much from this book that was very eye-opening, to say the least. And then there's also memoir, like you would know it, and also poetry. So if you are looking to read more Native voices, I highly recommend starting here. She's a beautiful writer. This book has so much to offer, and is definitely one that was under my radar, so probably under a lot of people's radar, but it comes highly recommended from me. So I'm gonna post this in a comment to the last post, because I really couldn't end there, and there's a lot of other genres to talk about with Native voices. So I just wanted to make sure you guys were all aware. America's Poet Laureate is currently Joy Harjo, who is a Native writer. She currently teaches at University of New Mexico. She also has a really great memoir that I've read, but this is one of her poetry collections called She Had Some Horses, and it is stunning. It is an absolutely gut-wrenching, musical, just beautiful poetry collection that I highly recommend to anybody. And then also, if you're looking for some nonfiction, this one was a big eye-opener as well. It's not written by a Native person. This is 1491 by Charles C. Mann, but this is a huge historical document about the Americas, so not just North America, but also largely South America, and what it looked like, and what happened, and what was going on this continent before Columbus in 1492. So 2 other books that I just couldn't help but also recommend, so check them out. Okay, so let's get into some fiction now. I am largely a fiction reader, so there's going to be 2 novels on this list. One of the most formative novels of my, kind of early adult life was Bel Canto by Ann Patchett. Now, if you're a big reader, you've probably heard of this, but if not, if you've heard of it and you haven't read it, or if you're not a big reader and you don't know anything about Ann Patchett, I highly recommend her. She has a lot of other books, but this is one of her first big novels, and this is actually about something that actually happened. There was, in the book, there's this birthday party thrown for this Japanese tech company CEO, and they get him to come because there's a opera singer that he adores, and so she comes. And the vice president of this country, it takes place in South America, was supposed to be there as well. And so this whole party gets taken over by a small band of revolutionaries, also dubbed terrorists. But the vice president actually isn't even there. So this whole party just turns into this little small community that's under hostage, but it doesn't go as planned. Lots of relationships form. You're sort of just like in there in this small little like world. It kind of becomes this odd little utopia, and it's just beautiful. It's about vulnerability and art and beauty and love and music. It's just a stunning, like heartbreaking, beautiful, memorable novel that I recommend to anyone. It's one of those ones I generally put in the hands of anybody, so I thought I would start here when it comes to fiction. Now, one of my favorite nonfiction books has to be a more recent title. This is The Collected Schizophrenias by Esme Weijun Wang. And I work in mental health. So this is about someone who has a schizoaffective disorder. So that's essentially a mixture of schizophrenia plus bipolar. So there's some scientific elements that she goes into, but it's a very, open and vulnerable introspection into someone who deals with this on a regular basis and has been in institutions and also in normal society. And it really does a wonderful job about educating you, bringing you in, and also helping to normalize, what people with this disorder and different disorders under the whole spectrum of schizophrenias go through. These are also people that I personally work with. So I just loved seeing this book come out, loved seeing all of the wonderful accolades and praise that it got, and it just did a lot of great work. The book itself, she talks about so many like real issues that are going to relate to anybody, but it also is an eye-opener for anyone who wants to learn more about mental health and the huge wide spectrum that it is. And also it doesn't hurt that Esme is a beautiful writer as well. So also highly recommended as a nonfiction title, and one I would definitely recommend to the Yang Gang. Okay, so for my second fiction pick, it's a novel, but it's actually a novel in 7 stories, and it is called The Women of Brewster Place by Gloria Naylor. This is a very unique novel in that there are separate standing stories, but they are also interlinked, and you don't completely get the purpose of it until the very end. But along the way, you get so many different stories, so many different perspectives. It's honestly a great book club pick simply in that it just touches on so many different topics, obviously to do with race, sex and gender, class, work, friendships and relationships. I mean, the possibilities are endless with this book. Gloria Naylor is also a wonderful, beautiful writer. And this is definitely a modern classic, I would say, that I would also put in the hands of anyone, and I would definitely recommend to the Yang Gang book club in the future. So check this one out. So up until this point, my list has been a bit on the serious side, but I have to be honest, I read a lot of YA and fantasy, some sci-fi, just, I read a lot for fun. And so one of the books I wanted to recommend that is, to me, a lot of fun, but also would be good for the Yang Gang book club. I actually have the sequel here. So this is Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman, but specifically Scythe is the first book. I just don't have it because I think I borrowed it from a friend. But this is about a future where we have eradicated death. Technology has advanced so much that essentially, like, I forget what it's called, but where technology becomes like infinitely intelligent. And so we have no government. We actually have what's called the thunder, I think it's called the thunder cloud, I forget. And then, yeah, people can turn a corner and like become young again. And in order to control the population, we have the Scythedom, which is like basically legalized killing. And so it's about 2 young people who become scythe apprentices. and, you know, in doing so, learn some not so great things about the Sidedom and society at that point. And there's some people who definitely want to disrupt the order of the Sidedom. So it's just a really fun ride, but it's also makes you think in a lot of ways. It's a very creative, interesting book that I think would be great for a book club. So I really hope you'll check this series out. The first book is called Side. This is the second one. Then there's a final book called The Toll. And thanks so much for joining me in my first takeover and listening to all of my my favorite books. And tune in later this week for Megan and Natalie's takeover. Thanks. Bye.